Jasmine Brooks had served countless wealthy patrons at Azure Sky, Atlanta's most exclusive rooftop restaurant. She'd endured condescending remarks, witnessed extravagant displays of wealth, and perfected the art of remaining invisible while attending to the elite. But nothing prepared her for the moment Mi Kyung-jang's saliva hit her cheek. The restaurant fell silent. Yasmin stood frozen, tray trembling in her hands, as the elegant Korean woman sneered at her with undisguised contempt. "That's what happens when trash like you breathes near me," Mi Kyung said, her voice dripping with venom. Yasmin's vision blurred with humiliation. Every eye in the restaurant fixed on her, some pitying, others entertained by the spectacle. She'd worked 2 years at Azure Sky, endured night classes for her business degree, survived on 4 hours of sleep. And for what? To be degraded in front of Atlanta's wealthy elite. Then a voice cut through the silence, deep, cold, lethal. "Get out!" Yasmin's gaze shifted to the man rising from Mi Kyung's table. Seung-ho Lee stood 6'3" of contained fury, his white shirt unbuttoned just enough to reveal the head of a Korean dragon tattooed across his throat. His dark eyes promised violence, but he wasn't looking at Yasmin. The temperature in Azure Sky dropped 10 degrees when Seung-ho Lee stood. Yasmin watched, still rooted to her spot, as the man she'd assumed was Mi Kyung's devoted boyfriend turned the full weight of his attention on the woman who'd just humiliated her. "Seung-ho, darling," Mi Kyung began, her confident smirk faltering. "I said get out." His voice remained quiet, but something in his tone made several nearby patrons shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Now?" Mi Kyung's perfectly made-up face twisted with confusion and anger. "You can't be serious. Over some waitress? You're nothing to me." Seung-ho pulled out his phone, never breaking eye contact with Mi Kyung. "Marcus, I need someone removed from Azure Sky, permanently banned. Yes, from all my establishments." He paused, his jaw tightening. "Mi Kyung-jang, effective immediately." The color drained from Mi Kyung's face. "Wait, your establishments, what are you? Did you think I brought you here because I enjoyed your company?" Seung-ho's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "This was a test. You failed spectacularly." Yasmin's mind raced. His establishments? She glanced around Azure Sky with new eyes, suddenly understanding why the staff had seemed nervous around this man all evening, why the manager had personally overseen his table. "You own this restaurant," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. Seung-ho's gaze finally shifted to her, and Yasmin felt the air leave her lungs. Up close, he was devastatingly handsome. Sharp jawline, perfectly styled black hair, and those intense dark eyes that seemed to see straight through her. But it was the dragon tattoo curving up his neck that held her attention. The intricate Korean design spoke of tradition, power, and something far more dangerous than restaurant ownership. "I own 7 restaurants in Atlanta," he said, his voice gentler now but no less commanding, "along with several other businesses, none of which will ever serve Ms. Jang again." He turned back to Mi Kyung, who stood frozen in horror. "Security will escort you out. If you come near any of my properties, near me or—" his eyes hardened, "near her again, you'll discover exactly why people in this city fear the name Lee." 2 large men in dark suits materialized from the shadows. Yasmin hadn't even noticed them before. They flanked Mi Kyung, who looked between them and Seung-ho with dawning terror. "You're insane," Mi Kyung hissed. "My father will—" "Your father does business with my family. I suggest you ask him what happens to people who disrespect us." Seung-ho's expression remained impassive. "Now get the fuck out of my restaurant." The security team escorted a stumbling, humiliated Mi Kyung toward the elevator. The restaurant remained silent, every patron transfixed by the scene. Yasmin stood rooted to the spot, her cheek still wet with Mi Kyung's spit, her mind trying to process what had just happened. Seung-ho turned to her, and his entire demeanor shifted. The cold fury melted into something almost gentle. He pulled a pristine handkerchief from his pocket and held it out to her. "I apologize for her behavior," he said quietly, "and for not stopping it before she had the chance to humiliate you." Yasmin stared at the offered handkerchief, her hands trembling. She couldn't take it, couldn't move. The adrenaline that had kept her frozen was wearing off, replaced by a crushing wave of shame. She'd been spat on, in front of everyone, in front of— her vision blurred with unshed tears. No, she wouldn't cry. Not here. Not in front of these people who'd watched her degradation like it was dinner theater. "I need to—" Her voice cracked. She thrust the tray at the nearest co-worker and fled toward the staff hallway, desperate for the bathroom, for privacy. For anywhere she wouldn't have dozens of eyes on her. Wait. Chung-ho's hand caught her elbow, his grip firm but not painful. Please, let me go. Yasmin yanked her arm back, finally meeting his eyes. You got your revenge on your girlfriend or whatever she was? Great. Fantastic. Can I please just go cry in peace now? She was never my girlfriend. His brow furrowed. I've been investigating her father's company for laundering money through his imports. Tonight was supposed to... He stopped himself, shaking his head. That's not important. What's important is that you were assaulted in my restaurant while under my protection as an employee, and I need to make this right. Make it right? Yasmin laughed bitterly. You can't make this right. Everyone in this room just watched me get treated like garbage. My manager's probably already writing my termination paperwork because God forbid I cause a scene with the wealthy customers. David isn't firing anyone. Sung-ho's voice carried enough authority that Yasmin believed him instantly. And those customers just learned what happens when someone disrespects my staff. Trust me, word will spread. No one will dare treat you poorly again. Because they'll be too busy pitying me. Yasmin's throat tightened. Thanks, but I don't need your charity or your protection. She needed to go home. To her tiny apartment with its broken air conditioning and persistent roach problem. She needed to shower until she felt clean again. She needed to forget this entire nightmare. Come work for me. Yasmin blinked. Excuse me. Not as a server, as my personal assistant. Chung-ho pulled out a business card and pressed it into her hand. I've been looking for someone smart, observant, and able to handle difficult situations with grace. You qualify on all counts. You don't know anything about me. I know you're pursuing a business degree at Georgia State, night classes. You've worked here 2 years without a single customer complaint, despite dealing with some of Atlanta's worst entitled assholes. His lips quirked. I know you arrive 30 minutes early for every shift, and you volunteer at the Westside Community Center on Sundays. I make it my business to know about people who work in my establishments. The statement should have been creepy. Instead, Yasmin felt something shift in her chest, surprised that anyone had noticed her, had seen her as more than just the woman who brought drinks and cleared plates. Why? She asked. Why would you offer me a job because you feel guilty? Because you deserve better than this. Chung-ho gestured around the restaurant. And because I need someone I can trust, someone who understands what it's like to fight for every opportunity. His dark eyes held hers. Think about it. The position pays triple what you make here, full benefits, and you can arrange your hours around your classes. Triple. Yasmin's mind spun. Triple her current salary meant she could actually save money, could maybe move to a safer neighborhood, could stop choosing between groceries and textbooks. What's the catch? There was always a catch. Chung-ho's expression darkened slightly. The catch is that my world is complicated, dangerous even. But I promise you this, anyone who works for me is under my protection. What happened tonight will never happen again. Before Yasmin could respond, her manager David appeared, his face pale and anxious. Mr. Lee, I apologize profusely for... Save it, David. Give Ms. Brooks the rest of the night off, paid. Chung-ho's tone left no room for argument. And I want a full review of your security protocols. If someone can assault my staff without immediate intervention, we have a problem. Yes, sir, right away, sir. David practically bowed before scurrying away. Yasmin stared at the business card in her hand. Simple, elegant black with silver lettering. Chung-ho Lee, CEO, Lee Enterprises. And a phone number. I need time to think, she said finally. Of course. Chung-ho inclined his head. Call me when you decide, or don't. Either way, Mi Kyung-jang will never bother you again. You have my word. He turned to leave, then paused, looking back at her. For what it's worth, the way you held yourself together just now, that took strength, real strength. Don't let anyone make you feel small, Yasmin Brooks. You're worth more than you know. Then he was gone, his security team materializing to flank him as he strode toward the private elevator. Yasmin stood in the staff hallway, handkerchief and business card clutched in her hands, her entire world tilted on its axis. She had no idea that answering that phone call would change everything. Yasmin didn't call for 3 days. She threw herself into her routine. Morning shift at Azure Sky, afternoon classes, evening study sessions at the library. The restaurant staff treated her differently now. Some with pity, others with newfound respect. David had pulled her aside her first day back to assure her that Mr. Lee had personally guaranteed her position and promised a raise. But it was the way other patrons behaved that truly unsettled her. News of the incident had spread through Atlanta's elite circles like wildfire. Wealthy businessmen who'd never made eye contact before now treated her with careful politeness. Women who'd snapped fingers at her now said, "Please and thank you," all because Seung-ho Lee had claimed her as under his protection. The phrase bothered her more than she wanted to admit. She didn't need a man, especially not some wealthy Korean businessman with mob connections, because let's be honest, that's what the dragon tattoo and the security team and the fear in people's eyes meant, to protect her. She'd survived her whole life without anyone's help, but triple the salary whispered seductively in her mind every time she checked her bank account and saw the depressing numbers. Every time her landlord texted about next month's rent, every time she had to choose between a textbook and groceries. On the fourth day she called. Seung-ho answered on the first ring. "I was beginning to think you'd decided against it." "I have conditions," Yasmin said, pacing her tiny apartment. "I'm not interested in being anyone's charity case or mistress or whatever this actually is." A pause. Then, to her surprise, Seung-ho laughed, a rich, warm sound that did absolutely nothing to her pulse. Nothing at all. "I have 7 restaurants, 3 clubs, 2 hotels and a dozen other businesses across Atlanta. I need an assistant to help manage my schedule, attend meetings, handle correspondence, and deal with various business matters. That's it. This isn't Pretty Woman Yasmin. It's employment." "Then why me specifically?" "Because you're smart, you're organized, and you don't take shit from people. Those are rare qualities." His voice softened. "And because you deserve a chance to focus on your degree instead of surviving paycheck to paycheck. Is that honest enough for you?" Yasmin bit her lip. It was probably a mistake. Definitely a mistake. "But when do I start?" "Tomorrow, 9 a.m. I'll text you the address." Another pause. "Thank you for trusting me, Yasmin." She hung up before she could second-guess herself into unemployment. The address Seung-ho sent led to a sleek high-rise in Midtown Atlanta. The penthouse office suite occupied the entire top floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Yasmin felt deeply out of place in her best interview outfit, a simple black blazer and pants from Target that suddenly felt cheap and ill-fitting. Seung-ho's assistant, an efficient-looking woman named Jennifer, greeted her with a warm smile and a stack of paperwork. "Mr. Lee is finishing a call. He'll be with you shortly. In the meantime, let's get your onboarding started." The benefits package made Yasmin's head spin. Health insurance, dental, vision, 401k matching, 3 weeks paid vacation, and a salary that was indeed triple what she'd been making at Azure Sky. "Is this real?" she asked Jennifer, staring at the numbers. "Very real. Mr. Lee takes care of his people." Jennifer's expression turned serious. "But I should warn you, this job isn't always easy. Seung-ho's business dealings can be complicated. You'll need to be discreet, professional, and able to handle high-pressure situations." "Complicated how?" Before Jennifer could answer, the office door opened and Seung-ho emerged. He wore a perfectly tailored black suit, white shirt unbuttoned at the collar, revealing that dragon tattoo, and an expression of barely contained frustration. "The shipment was intercepted?" he said into his phone, his voice deadly calm. "I see. And the contact?" A pause. "Good. Make sure he understands that stealing from me was the last mistake he'll ever make." He ended the call and finally focused on Yasmin. His expression transformed instantly, the cold fury melting into something warmer. "Yasmin, welcome." "Bad day?" she asked before she could stop herself. His lips quirked. "No worse than usual. Shall we discuss your responsibilities?" The next hour passed in a blur of information. Seung-ho's calendar was insane. Meetings with investors, restaurant inspections, property acquisitions, and various appointments with people whose titles seemed deliberately vague. Yasmin took notes frantically, trying to keep up. "You'll also accompany me to business dinners and social events," Seung-ho added. "Many of my associates prefer face-to-face negotiations, and having you there to document everything will be invaluable." "Accompany you?" Yasmin looked up from her notepad. "Like, as a date?" "As my assistant." But something in his eyes shifted when he said it, a flicker of awareness that made her skin prickle. "Though people will make assumptions, I apologize in advance for that. I can handle assumptions." "I know you can." Seung-ho leaned back in his chair, studying her. "That's why you're here." The first 2 weeks were exhausting but exhilarating. Yasmin coordinated meetings, managed correspondence, and learned the intricate web of Seung-ho's business empire. She also learned that complicated was Jennifer's polite way of saying that Lee Enterprises operated in some decidedly grey areas. The restaurants and hotels were legitimate. But there were other businesses, import companies, security firms, real estate holdings, that seemed to exist primarily on paper. Money moved through accounts in patterns Yasmin recognized from her business law classes, patterns that suggested creative accounting at best. She didn't ask questions, partly because she needed this job, partly because Seung-ho had kept his word. He protected his people fiercely and treated her with consistent respect. And partly because, against all logic and self-preservation, she was starting to like him. Not romantically, obviously not. He was her boss, her very attractive, infuriatingly charming, surprisingly funny boss, who remembered her coffee order and asked about her classes and once spent 20 minutes explaining Korean business philosophy when she admitted confusion over a contract term. Definitely not romantically. The delusion shattered the night of the charity gala. Seung-ho had asked her to attend as his +1, purely professional, he'd assured her, to a fundraiser for Atlanta's Children's Hospital. Jennifer had taken her shopping, using the company card to purchase a stunning midnight blue gown that hugged her curves and made her feel like someone else entirely, someone who belonged in these spaces. "You look beautiful," Seung-ho said when he picked her up, and the way his eyes darkened as they tracked over her made her pulse jump. "It's the dress," she deflected. "It's not the dress." His gaze held hers for a moment too long before he seemed to catch himself. "Shall we?" The gala was held at the Fox Theatre, Atlanta's most iconic venue. Yasmin found herself introduced to politicians, business moguls, and old-money families whose names she recognized from her city history classes. Everyone treated Seung-ho with a mixture of respect and carefully concealed fear. She was beginning to understand why. "That's Young-hoon Park," Seung-ho murmured during dinner, nodding toward a distinguished Korean man holding court across the ballroom. Technically a legitimate businessman, actually runs protection rackets on the west side. He sipped his wine. "We have an understanding. He doesn't interfere with my territory. I don't expose his operation to the FBI." Yasmin's appetite vanished. "Your territory?" Seung-ho turned to her, his expression unreadable. "Did you think I built this empire through restaurant reviews and good marketing, Yasmin? I thought—" She didn't know what she'd thought, or maybe she'd been deliberately not thinking about it. "My family has controlled a significant portion of Atlanta's, let's call it alternative economy, for 3 generations. He spoke quietly, his tone matter-of-fact. "We provide services that people need but can't access through legitimate channels. Protection, mediation, problem-solving. I took over from my father 5 years ago and have been working to transition more of our operations into legal businesses. So you're—" She couldn't say it, couldn't wrap her mind around the reality of what he was admitting. "The Korean term is jopok, organized crime in English, though I prefer to think of myself as a businessman who operates in unregulated markets." His jaw tightened. "I understand if this changes things. I can arrange for a transfer to one of the legitimate businesses, or provide an excellent reference if you'd rather leave entirely." Yasmin stared at him. She should run, should quit immediately and distance herself from whatever illegal activities he was involved in. "Is anyone being hurt?" she asked instead. "In your unregulated markets?" Seung-ho's expression flickered with surprise. "I have strict rules. No drugs, no human trafficking, no violence against civilians. The families under my protection are treated fairly. The businesses that pay for our services receive genuine security and problem resolution. I'm not a monster, Yasmin." "But you're not exactly legal." "No," he admitted. "I'm not." The admission hung between them, heavy with implications. Yasmin's mind raced through possibilities, consequences, the sheer insanity of continuing to work for an actual crime boss. Then she thought about her bank account, her ability to finally save money, the respect she'd gained, the safety she felt walking to her car at night knowing Seung-ho's security team watched over his people, the way he'd defended her against Mi-kyung without hesitation. "I have one condition," she said finally. Hope flickered across his face. "Name it." "Complete honesty. If you need me to do something illegal or dangerous, you tell me up front. No surprises. You have my word. Then I'm staying." Seung-ho's smile was genuine, warm, and made her stomach flip in a way that had nothing to do with professional courtesy. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for trusting me." As the orchestra began playing, and he offered his hand to lead her to the dance floor, Yasmin realized with startling clarity that trust wasn't the problem. The problem was that she was falling for him. The attempted hit happened 3 weeks later. Yasmin had just finished reviewing contracts in Seung-ho's office when the first gunshot shattered the window. Instinct dropped her to the floor before her conscious mind registered danger. Glass rained down around her as more shots punctured the penthouse walls. Then Seung-ho was there, his body covering hers, shielding her from the assault. His weight pressed her into the carpet, solid and protective, and terrifyingly vulnerable. "Stay down," he commanded, his voice steel-hard with authority. More gunshots, shouting in Korean. The thunder of footsteps as Seung-ho's security team mobilized. Then, as suddenly as it started, silence. Seung-ho lifted his head, scanning the room before carefully helping Yasmin to her feet. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head mutely, shock stealing her voice. Her hands trembled uncontrollably. "Look at me." Seung-ho cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Breathe, Yasmin. You're safe. I promise you're safe." "Someone just shot at us," she managed. "Someone shot at me. You were collateral damage, which is unacceptable." His thumb traced her cheekbone, his touch achingly gentle despite the violence still humming in the air. "I'm going to handle this. But first..." His security chief, Marcus, appeared in the doorway. "Sniper on the adjacent building. He's gone, but we found his rifle. Professional setup." "Park?" Seung-ho's voice went cold. "Likely. Or someone trying to frame him. The rifle has his signature markings." Seung-ho's jaw clenched. He turned back to Yasmin, conflict warring across his features. "I need to take you somewhere safe, now." "Safe where?" "My home. It has better security than this office." He pulled out his phone. "Jennifer, clear my schedule. Indefinitely." He ended the call and focused on Yasmin again. "I'm sorry. This is exactly what I hoped would never happen." Marcus drove them to Buckhead, Atlanta's wealthiest neighborhood, where Seung-ho's home occupied a gated estate behind 8-foot walls and high-tech security systems. The house itself was stunning, modern architecture blended with traditional Korean design elements. But Yasmin barely noticed the aesthetic details. Her mind kept replaying those gunshots, the way Seung-ho had covered her body with his own without hesitation. He'd been willing to die to protect her. "Guest room is upstairs, second door on the right," Seung-ho said as they entered. "I'll have Marcus bring some of your things from your apartment. You're staying here until this situation is resolved. I can't just move into your house." "You can, and you will." His tone left no room for argument. "Yonghoon Park just declared war. Anyone associated with me is a potential target. That includes you. Because I work for you. Because you matter to me." The words hung between them, raw and honest. Seung-ho seemed to realize what he'd said, his expression tightening. "As my assistant, as someone under my protection. The specifics don't matter. What matters is keeping you alive." Over the next few days, Yasmin learned what it meant to live in Seung-ho's world. Security teams patrolled the grounds. Every window had bulletproof glass. Business associates came and went at all hours, speaking in rapid Korean about strategy and retaliation and territory disputes. She also learned about Seung-ho himself. He woke at 5 a.m. to practice taekwondo in his private gym. He spoke 3 languages fluently and had a degree in business from Emory University. He donated anonymously to the West Side Community Center, where she volunteered. He called his mother in Seoul every Sunday morning without fail. And he looked at Yasmin like she was precious, valuable, worth protecting. "You don't have to stay in here," Seung-ho said one evening, finding her working in the guest room. "The house is yours to use freely. I don't want to intrude." "You're not." He leaned against the doorframe, studying her. "You've been here 4 days and we've barely talked about anything besides business. I miss our conversations." Something warm bloomed in Yasmin's chest. "You miss arguing with me about whether Chicago-style pizza is an abomination. I miss you calling me a food snob while simultaneously admitting I'm right." His lips quirked. "Come have dinner with me. Properly, not as boss and assistant." "Then, as what?" The question hung in the air, weighted with possibility. As Seung-ho crossed the room, each step deliberate and measured, until he stood close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle that made her want to lean closer. "As 2 people who enjoy each other's company," he said quietly. "As friends, if that's all you want, or..." His fingers brushed her hand, sending electricity up her arm. "As whatever this is becoming between us." Yasmin's breath caught. "This is a terrible idea. You're my boss. You're Korean Mafia. Someone literally tried to kill you 4 days ago. All valid points." His thumb traced patterns on her wrist. "Counter-argument. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since the night Mi-kyung assaulted you. I admire your strength, your intelligence, the way you challenge me. And if I'm being completely honest, which you demanded, I want you in ways that have nothing to do with professional courtesy." Heat flooded through her. "Seung-ho, if you don't feel the same, tell me now." I'll respect that boundary completely. You'll continue working for me, living here until it's safe, and I'll never mention this again. His dark eyes searched hers. But if there's even a possibility that you feel this too, Yasmin should say no, should maintain professional boundaries and self-preservation instincts, should remember that she'd watched too many women lose themselves in powerful men who promised protection and delivered control. Instead, she closed the distance between them and kissed him. Seung-ho made a low sound of surprise before his arms came around her, pulling her flush against him. He kissed like he did everything else, with complete focus and devastating competence. His lips were soft but demanding, coaxing responses from her that she hadn't known she could give. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Yasmin pressed her forehead against his chest. "This is still a terrible idea. Absolutely catastrophic," he agreed, his fingers threading through her hair. "Want to make more terrible decisions with me?" She laughed despite herself. "You're impossible. I'm yours." He tilted her chin up, his expression serious now. "If you want me, Yasmin, I'm yours completely." The declaration should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like coming home. That night, they had dinner in Seung-ho's private dining room. He actually cooked, refusing to let his staff prepare the meal. Traditional Korean dishes that he explained with endearing enthusiasm. Bulgogi, japchae, kimchi. His grandmother had taught him to make before he'd left Seoul as a child. "My father wanted me to be completely American," Seung-ho said, pouring her more wine. "Thought it would help the business. But my mother insisted I maintain connection to our heritage. Language, food, traditions." He smiled faintly. "She'd like you. Because I'm me or because I challenge you?" "Both. She always said I needed someone who wouldn't be intimidated by the family business." His expression grew distant. "Not many people can handle what we are, what I am." Yasmin reached across the table, taking his hand. "I'm handling it, for now. But this situation with Park..." He broke off, frustration tightening his features. "I won't let you get caught in the crossfire." "Bit late for that. I'm serious, Yasmin. If things escalate, then we deal with it, together." She squeezed his fingers. "You don't get to protect me by pushing me away. That's not how this works." Seung-ho stared at her for a long moment. Then he stood, circled the table, and pulled her into his arms. "How did I get so lucky?" he murmured against her hair. "You defended me against your psycho ex. Set the bar pretty high." He laughed, the sound rumbling through his chest. "She was never my ex, just a means to investigate her father. Still, you chose me over her. That meant something. It meant everything." He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. "You mean everything." The kiss this time was slower, deeper, full of promise. Yasmin let herself fall into it, into him. Consequences be damned. She didn't know that across town Yonghun Park was planning his next move. She didn't know that Mi Kyung-jang, humiliated and vengeful, had made a deal with Park to destroy Seung-ho. She didn't know that being Seung-ho Lee's woman had just painted the biggest target imaginable on her back, but she'd find out soon enough. The ambush came disguised as a routine errand. Yasmin had been living in Seung-ho's estate for 2 weeks. The situation with Park seemed to have cooled. No more gunshots, no more direct threats. Seung-ho's security teams reported that Park had pulled back his aggressive moves, possibly negotiating through intermediaries for a peaceful resolution. They'd been wrong. "I need to pick up some documents from the West Side property," Yasmin told Seung-ho over breakfast. "The quarterly tax records that were filed incorrectly." Seung-ho looked up from his phone, frowning. "Marcus can retrieve those. I've been cooped up in this house for 2 weeks. I'm going stir-crazy." She softened her tone. "Please, I'll take security. I'll be careful. But I need to feel like a normal person for a few hours." Conflict played across his features before he finally nodded. "Fine. But you take Jin and David with you. Stay in the car. They retrieve the documents. You don't go inside any buildings without full security sweep first." Deal. The West Side property was one of Lee Enterprises' smaller holdings, a mixed-use building with commercial space on the ground floor and apartments above. Yasmin had been there dozens of times during her tenure as Seung-ho's assistant. It should have been routine. Jin parked the SUV outside while David went inside to retrieve the documents. Yasmin scrolled through her phone, responding to emails, trying to pretend that having 2 armed guards constituted a normal Tuesday afternoon. Then David's voice crackled through the radio. "We have a problem. Ms. Brooks needs to see this." Jin tensed. "Specify the problem." "The office has been ransacked. Files everywhere. Someone was looking for something specific." Yasmin's stomach dropped. Is it safe? Building's clear, but you need to see what they left behind. Against protocol, against every instinct screaming at her to stay in the car, Yasmin followed Jin inside. The office was indeed destroyed, filing cabinets overturned, papers scattered across the floor, computers smashed. But it was the message spray-painted across the wall that stopped her cold. Lee's whore dies next. The words were in English, crude red letters that dripped down the white wall like blood. Beside the message was a photo of Yasmin leaving Seung-ho's estate that morning. They'd been watching her. "Get her out," Jin barked into his radio. "Now, code red." Everything happened fast after that. Jin grabbed Yasmin's arm, pulling her toward the exit. David flanked her other side. They'd almost reached the SUV when the first assailant appeared. He came from the alley, masked, armed with a knife, moving with professional precision. Jin intercepted him, the two men colliding in a blur of violence. David shoved Yasmin toward the vehicle, just as two more attackers emerged from a delivery truck. "Get in the car," David commanded, putting himself between Yasmin and the threat. She fumbled with the door handle, adrenaline making her clumsy. Behind her she heard grunts of impact, the thud of bodies hitting concrete. Jin shouted something in Korean. David screamed. Yasmin turned in time to see David go down, red blooming across his white shirt. "No!" She lunged toward him, but Jin caught her, his grip bruising in its intensity. "Car, now!" He shoved her into the SUV and gunned the engine before she'd even closed the door. The vehicle lurched forward, tires squealing. In the rearview mirror, Yasmin watched David's body lying on the pavement while two masked figures fled into the shadows. "We have to go back," she screamed. "David's hurt, he's bleeding." "Backup's already en route." Jin's voice was tight with barely controlled fury. "My job is getting you to safety. That's what David died doing." The words hit like a physical blow. Died. David was dead. Because of her. Because she'd insisted on leaving the house. Because she'd wanted to feel normal for a few goddamn hours. Jin drove like a demon through Atlanta traffic, running red lights and taking turns that made the SUV tilt dangerously. His phone rang continuously. Marcus, other security team members, and finally Seung-ho. "I'm taking her to the secondary safe house," Jin said without preamble. "David's down. 3 assailants, professional operation. They were waiting for us." Seung-ho's voice came through the speaker, cold with contained rage. "Is Yasmin hurt?" "I'm fine," Yasmin said, though she was absolutely not fine. Her hands shook. David's blood was probably still warm on that pavement. "I'm so sorry. This is my fault." I insisted on going. "We'll discuss it later." Jin estimated arrival time, 20 minutes. "Good. I'll meet you there with additional security. No one in or out until I've secured the perimeter." The safe house was in Decatur, a nondescript suburban home that blended perfectly with its neighbors. Only the reinforced door and security cameras betrayed its true purpose. Jin swept the interior before allowing Yasmin inside, then positioned himself by the front window, weapon drawn. Yasmin collapsed onto the couch, shock finally setting in. A man had died protecting her. David, who'd been kind to her at Azure Sky, who had a wife and 2 kids who just wanted to do his job, was dead because she'd been stubborn and naive enough to think a few security guards made her safe. When Seung-ho arrived 30 minutes later, surrounded by at least 6 additional guards, Yasmin barely registered his entrance. She stared at her hands, seeing blood that wasn't there. "Everyone out," Seung-ho ordered. "Give us the room." The security team filed out silently. Then it was just the 2 of them, the weight of what had happened pressing down like a physical force. "I'm sorry," Yasmin whispered. "I'm so sorry." Seung-ho crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. She broke then, sobs tearing from her throat as she clutched his shirt. He held her through it, one hand stroking her hair, murmuring in Korean, words she didn't understand but found comforting anyway. When the storm finally passed, leaving her empty and exhausted, Seung-ho eased back just enough to look at her. His eyes were dark with fury, but his touch remained gentle. "This isn't your fault," he said firmly. "Park orchestrated this. He's trying to break me by hurting you. David knew the risks. Every person who works for me understands what they're signing up for." "He had kids," Yasmin said brokenly. "A family. And they'll be taken care of. Trust fund for the kids' education. Mortgage paid off. His wife will never have to worry about money." Seung-ho's jaw clenched. "It's not enough. It will never be enough. But I take care of my people, even in death. What happens now? Now I end this." The cold rage in his voice made Yasmin shiver. Park wanted a war, he's got one, but first, he cupped her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. I need to know you're completely safe. That means leaving Atlanta. What? No, I'm not running. You're not running. You're surviving. His expression was implacable. I have a property in Savannah, secure, isolated, protected. You'll stay there with a full security detail until I've neutralized Park. And what will you be doing? What I should have done weeks ago. His eyes went cold. Reminding Atlanta why the Lee family is not to be crossed. Yasmin grabbed his shirt, holding tight. Don't you dare die on me, Seung-ho Lee. We just started this thing between us. You don't get to sacrifice yourself for revenge. Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or tenderness. I have no intention of dying. Park's the one who made a fatal mistake. He kissed her forehead, then her lips, the contact achingly gentle. But I need to know you're safe before I can focus on ending him. Please, Yasmin, let me protect you. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist on staying, on fighting beside him, on not being shipped off like helpless baggage. But David's body on the pavement flashed through her mind, and she understood. She was a liability, a weakness Park could exploit. How long? She asked. A week, maybe 2. His thumb traced her lower lip. Then you come home to me. Promise? I promise. He kissed her again, deeper this time with an edge of desperation. You're mine now, Yasmin Brooks, and I protect what's mine. The words should have sounded possessive. Instead, they felt like a vow. That night, Seung-ho personally drove her to Savannah. The safe house was a renovated historic mansion on the outskirts of the city, beautiful and isolated in equal measure. Marcus would lead her security detail, 8 guards operating in rotating shifts. I'll call every day, Seung-ho promised at the door, and if anything feels wrong, you contact me immediately. Be careful, Yasmin whispered. Please be careful. Always. He pulled her close one last time, breathing her in like he was memorizing her scent. Sarange, he murmured against her hair. She didn't speak Korean, but she understood anyway. I love you too. He kissed her like it might be the last time. Then he was gone, disappearing into the night with his security team, leaving Yasmin in a beautiful prison with nothing to do but wait and pray he survived what came next. 3 days into her exile, Yasmin received the video. It came from an unknown number, delivered via encrypted message. Against her better judgment, against everything Marcus advised, she opened it. The footage showed a warehouse. Seung-ho stood in the center, surrounded by his security team. Across from him, Jung-hoon Park knelt on the concrete floor, hands bound behind his back, face bloodied from what had clearly been a thorough beating. This is what happens, Seung-ho's voice said, cold and devoid of emotion. When you threaten what belongs to me. The camera angle shifted, revealing Mi Kyung-jang bound to a chair beside Park. Her makeup was smeared, her designer clothes torn. She looked terrified. You should have stayed away, Seung-ho continued, now addressing Mi Kyung directly. I gave you a chance to disappear quietly. Instead, you partnered with Park, gave him information about my businesses, helped plan the attack that killed one of my men. He crouched in front of her, his expression deadly. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Please, Mi Kyung sobbed. I'm sorry. I just wanted... I loved you. You loved my money and status. There's a difference. He stood, turning back to Park. As for you, touching my woman was your first mistake. Killing David was your second. But your fatal error. His lips curved into something predatory. You forgot that the Lee family has been in this business for 3 generations. We know every player, every move, every weakness in this city. The video cut off. Yasmin stared at her phone, heart pounding. What had she just witnessed? What was Seung-ho doing to them? Her phone rang. Seung-ho's name flashed across the screen. Did you watch it? He asked without preamble. What are you doing to them? Park's being transported to a holding facility where he'll be questioned about his operation. Then he's being put on a cargo ship to South Korea, where certain business associates will ensure he never returns to the United States. His tone was matter of fact, like he was discussing shipping logistics rather than human trafficking. Mi Kyung's being sent to her father in Seoul with a detailed dossier of her crimes. He'll handle her punishment as he sees fit. You're sending them away. I'm removing the threats to your safety without committing murder on U.S. soil. A pause. I know you expected more violence, but I meant what I said about having rules. I don't kill unnecessarily. Exile serves my purposes just as well as execution, with significantly less legal exposure. Yasmin's mind reeled. And if Park comes back, he won't. The people receiving him owe my family considerable debts. They'll ensure his permanent retirement from the business." His voice softened. "It's over, Yasmin. You can come home." "Just like that?" "Just like that. Park's organization is being absorbed by neutral parties who've agreed to respect Lee territory. His lieutenants have been offered generous buyouts to switch allegiance or retire. Mi Kyung's father has formally apologized and offered reparations for his daughter's actions." A hint of dark satisfaction colored his tone. Atlanta's underworld has been reminded why we don't make moves against the Lee family. Yasmin should have been horrified by the casual efficiency of it all. Instead, she felt overwhelming relief. It was over. She was safe. "I'm sending a car for you tomorrow morning," Seung-ho continued. "Pack anything you want to keep from the safe house. Everything else will be handled by my staff." "Where am I going?" "Home, to me." The raw emotion in those 3 words made her chest ache. "If you still want that." "Of course I want that, you idiot. I love you." Silence, then roughly, "Say it again." "I love you, Seung-ho Lee. Your criminal empire, your protective instincts, your grandmother's kimchi recipe, all of it." His laugh was warm and genuine. "I love you too, more than I thought possible. Now get some sleep. You have a long drive tomorrow." The estate looked different when Yasmin returned. More like home than prison. Seung-ho met her at the door, pulling her into his arms before she'd even fully exited the vehicle. "Never again," he murmured against her hair. "You're never leaving my sight again. That's not practical or healthy." "I don't care." He pulled back just enough to kiss her, deep and thorough and claiming, "You're mine. I'm keeping you close." The possessiveness should have bothered her. Instead, it sent heat pooling low in her belly. "So what now? We just go back to normal?" "Better than normal." He took her hand, leading her inside. "I've made some changes to Lee Enterprises' structure. More legitimate operations, less gray area dealings. I'm transitioning the family business into something you can be proud to work for." Yasmin stopped walking. "You don't have to do that for me. I'm doing it for us. For the future, I want to build with you." His dark eyes held hers with devastating intensity. "I'm doing it because you make me want to be better than what I was. Better than what my father was." Tears pricked her eyes. "That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. Wait until you see what I had installed in your office." The penthouse office suite had been completely renovated. Her workspace now occupied the prime corner position with the best view of Atlanta's skyline. The desk was sleek and modern, with dual monitors and ergonomic everything. But it was the small touches that made her throat tighten. Framed photos of her family. A coffee station stocked with her favorite beans, fresh flowers in a vase. "You did all this in 3 days?" "I had motivation." Seung-ho wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "I want you to be happy here, to feel like this is truly your space, not just where you work for me." Yasmin turned in his arms, cupping his face. "I am happy, with you. That's all that matters." The kiss started gentle but quickly turned heated. Seung-ho's hand spanned her waist, pulling her flush against him. She could feel his heart racing, matching the frantic pace of her own. "I want you," he breathed against her lips. "I've wanted you since that first night at Azure Sky. Tell me you want this too." "I want everything with you." She nipped at his lower lip, gratified when he groaned. "Take me to bed, Seung-ho." He didn't need to be told twice. Later, wrapped in Seung-ho's sheets with his body warm beside hers, Yasmin stared at the ceiling and marveled at how drastically her life had changed. 3 months ago, she'd been a struggling server, invisible to the wealthy patrons who'd never bothered learning her name. Now she was the woman of Atlanta's most powerful Korean crime boss, living in luxury, protected and cherished, and thoroughly loved. "What are you thinking?" Seung-ho asked, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "That this is insane. That I should probably be more concerned about the criminal enterprise you run. That my mother would have a heart attack if she knew who I was dating. And I don't care." She turned to face him, finding his dark eyes watching her with that intensity that always made her pulse jump. "You chose me, defended me, protected me, loved me. That matters more than anything else. You're not bothered by what I am?" "I'm bothered by the danger, but the rest—" She shrugged. "You're trying to be better. That's what counts." Seung-ho pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway." His laugh rumbled through his chest. "Lucky me." They fell asleep, tangled together, safe in each other's arms, the chaos of the past weeks finally behind them. Yasmin didn't know that across the city, David's widow was being presented with a trust fund that would secure her children's futures. She didn't know that Park's criminal organization was being systematically dismantled and absorbed into legitimate business ventures. She didn't know that Mi Kyung-jang would spend the next decade working in her father's factories in Seoul, stripped of the privilege she'd once wielded so carelessly. But she did know that Seung-ho Lee loved her, with a fierce protective devotion that would move mountains to keep her safe, and that was enough. 1 year later, the grand opening of the West Side Community Center's new youth education wing drew Atlanta's most influential residents. Yasmin stood beside Seung-ho, wearing a stunning emerald gown that made her feel like royalty, greeting donors and community leaders with confidence she'd never imagined possessing a year ago. "This is your vision," Seung-ho murmured, pride evident in his voice. "Look what you've built." The education wing had been Yasmin's idea, a way to channel Lee Enterprises' resources into genuine community benefit. Computer labs, tutoring programs, scholarship funds, opportunities for kids from neighborhoods like the one she'd grown up in. "We built it," she corrected. "Together." His hand found hers, their fingers intertwining naturally. The simple platinum band on her left hand caught the light, a promise made 3 months ago during a private ceremony in Seoul, witnessed by his family and hers. Mrs. Lee now, though she still used Brooks professionally. "Yo, Yasmin!" a familiar voice called out. She turned to find her former Azure Sky co-worker Jessica, waving enthusiastically. "Girl, you're a literal queen now, living the dream." Yasmin laughed, hugging her friend. "Not a queen, just someone who got lucky." "Lucky nothing. You earned every bit of this." Jessica glanced at Seung-ho, who'd tactfully stepped away to give them space. "And that man looks at you like you hung the moon. Y'all are goals for real." After the opening ceremony, after the speeches and photographs and congratulations, Seung-ho drove them home through Atlanta's glittering night skyline. His hand rested on her thigh, thumb tracing absent patterns on her skin. "Happy?" he asked. Yasmin looked at her husband, this complicated, dangerous, surprisingly tender man who'd chosen to defend her when he could have looked away, who'd transformed his life to build something better with her. "Incredibly," she said, and meant it with every fiber of her being.